Hello, my name is Brett Formosa, and welcome to a Unity tutorial video series for beginners. For this series, I'll go through each step with the mindset that all you've done is install Unity with no prior research or experience to make sure everyone can feel included and learn as we go. You can contact me either through the comment section down below, or by visiting my personal website, or by leaving a message on my itch.io page. The links are in the description of this video. Last video, we made the obstacle or asteroid move to the left or to the right using enums and a fixed velocity. In this video, we're going to respawn the asteroids when they reach the end of the screen. Let's get started for part 4. This episode shouldn't take too long as it is very basic in comparison to the last video. However, there are some key lessons here. One of them is what to do when two objects collide, and another is how to make one object move from one side of the screen and then appear somewhere else. First, we will make an empty game object by right-clicking on the hierarchy and clicking Create Empty. An empty game object is just a game object that has a transform property. It is the most basic of game objects because there is only one set of data that comprises it. One of the main uses for them is to hold a transform value so we don't have to script in exact coordinates. We will name this empty game object asteroid spawner and then move it all the way to the left side of the screen, just off screen. We know it is off screen because the camera only sees what is in this box. You may be asking, well then how do I know where it is? I can't see the exact location of it. This is a good question. One way we can visualize it temporarily is by adding a collider component to the spawner. So let's create a box collider 2D. I like to move the spawner a little bit past off screen so when an asteroid does teleport back, it doesn't just appear on screen randomly because that'll make it look odd. Instead, we'll put the spawner a little bit further so the asteroid, when it's teleported, can appear and then appear on screen shortly after. Let's parent the asteroid to the spawner and click on the asteroid and zero out the transform position. We do this because we want to make sure the asteroid is on a precise path to hit the spawner and that there's no mistakes like the asteroid missing the spawner. Next, click on the spawner and on the scale, let's drop it to 0.25 on all of the axis to make the spawner and the asteroid smaller so there's more room on screen. When we're finished with the spawner, let's remember to delete the box collider 2D from it by right-clicking on the component and then click Remove Component. Now, let's create another empty game object and call it Left Collider. We're going to give it a box collider 2D component and change the scale of the y-axis on the box collider 2D to 10. So it is a rectangle going top to bottom. We will then move the game object to the left of the spawner game object. We know now exactly where the spawner is because the asteroid is directly centered on top of it as of right now. So let's move the left collider to the left of the asteroid so it's not touching. Make sure that the collider is centered so it fills the left side of the camera space. We are going to then duplicate the left collider game object by right-clicking it and clicking Duplicate. And then remove the hyphen or negative sign from the x-axis transform position. This will mirror the game object to the left collider game object. We will also change the name of this game object to right collider. Now, click on the asteroid and open up the Asteroid Manager script. We need to add the code for what to do when the asteroid hits one of the colliders when it reaches the other side of the screen. To do this, we're first going to need a new reference to hold the transform values of the spawner. So let's create a public game object reference called spawner. We will then add a new function, but instead of it being a custom function like our move function, there's already a function that's built into Unity using the physics engine, and that is the onCollisionEnter 2D function. When looking at this function, it may seem very confusing because instead of having nothing in the parentheses, like in our move function, for example, there is collision 2D collision there. What this shows is the parameters that the function needs to run the code. So in this case, it is calling the built-in physics script to give the information of the collision 2D reference and naming that incoming reference collision. This may be a hard concept to grasp, so as always, if you need further clarification or want me to expand on this more, feel free to let me know down below. To continue, we're going to write a single line of code here. Transform.position equals spawner.transform.position. What this means is when a collision occurs and the asteroid's collider hits another collider, preferably the right or left collider in this instance, it will change the transform position of the asteroid to the transform position of the spawner, and then continue. Let's save the script and move to the Unity editor and make sure the asteroid's direction is set to right and click play. Oh no, we see an error. Let's take a look at what it says. It says the variable spawner isn't assigned according to the asteroid manager script. Let's take a look at this and take a look at the asteroid game objects inspector. In the asteroid manager component, it says that the spawner is assigned to none. Let's change that by dragging the spawner game object from the hierarchy to the field that says none on the asteroid manager. As you can see, it now says asteroid spawner. That means that the reference is completed. Let's hit play again and see if it still gives us the error. The error is cleared. While in play mode, let's change to scene view by clicking on the scene view panel. Here, we can still see everything that's going on in game, but without the constraints of seeing only what the camera sees. We can see the asteroid moving across the x-axis to the endpoint where it hits the right collider, and then it teleports back to the left side where the spawner is and continues. If you take a look in game view, you don't see the asteroid disappearing randomly, and it glides off screen and then reappears on screen on the opposite side. This is exactly what we want. Now, we need to do something that can be quite boring. We need to duplicate the asteroid and the spawner and create a bunch of them on the left and right side. But we also want to make sure they don't collide with each other. Let's create a mirror version of the current asteroid and spawner that we have. Similar to the left collider game object, we are going to duplicate the asteroid spawner by right-clicking and click Duplicate. Then we will remove the hyphen or negative symbol from the x-axis box in the transform position section. Now, we will create a bunch more. It doesn't have to be exactly the way I'm doing it, but I'm going to make sure all the asteroids go from bottom to the top as close as possible without taking too much time for exact coordinates, and speed up the video here as I position them all the way I want. What I'm going to do is position the first left and first right asteroids to the location that I want, and then duplicate them and move them slightly up, continue duplicating until I get the desired result to make things easier. I'm also going to quick duplicate the asteroids and the spawner by pressing left shift and D to duplicate and moving them to make sure they won't touch each other when they pass. Lastly, I am making sure that there is a sizable gap at the bottom of the screen so there is a safe zone for the player so they don't have to worry about spawning and then getting immediately hit by an asteroid. Once that is completed, let's click on all of the asteroids on the right side. Let's make sure that they're going to travel left. Let's hit play and make sure none of the asteroids hit each other. If they do, click play and then fix whatever you need to fix to make sure the asteroids all flow from one side of the screen to the other without hitting each other. Once they glide past each other, let's make things less predictable and move the asteroids to random x-axis locations so they look like they're spread out. When that's done, and when you hit play, they should be spread out and not look as uniform. Let's do some cleanup so the hierarchy doesn't look as chaotic. Let's create another empty game object and zero out the transform positions by putting a 0 in the X, Y, and Z axis boxes. Let's also rename this empty game object to asteroid assets. And then let's drag all of the asteroid spawners into this new empty game object to organize everything under one game object. Perfect. We have fully set up the asteroid movement to include spawning when they hit the edges of the screen. As always, with our goal done for the video, let's take a break and move on to the next video. In the next video, we will focus on what happens when the player reaches the top of the screen, and also what happens when the player hits one of the asteroid obstacles. Take care, and I'm going to see you in the next video.